It's Julie Pianto here with Bernard Kelly from retirelaughing.com. This is a really crucial question if you're actually using investment properties to build your retirement income. Um, what happens if you don't have a tenant?
Right. Yes. Well, that's well. Once again, that's one of these questions that is. It takes a while to understand that there are different qualities of tenant. I don't mean a tenant from the lower socioeconomic groups who you worry about are going to trash your investment, but what I mean to say, there are different types of other tenants. Like, for example, a tenant in a inner city CBD apartment. They're young professionals, although they might only last 12 months. They come and go and come and go. As there's a new building put up, 100 metres away with a gym and a coffee shop in the basement. So when you have tenants who are volatile, whenever you lose at one of those inner city tenants, whenever you use a tenant in any case, you always have 3 or 4 weeks when there's no rent coming in, and then the real estate agent is going to charge you another $600 or $700 to find the replacement tenant. So that's the type of tenant. You don't want those volatile tenants. What you really want is a long stay tenant. And really, it's a very important question, but a long stay, the ideal tenant is a young couple with kids in primary school because they'll stay 5 or 6 years. But really, of course, the question is what happens if that tenant moves out? Well, how I overcome that problem with the investments that I share with my private clients is that I only allow them to acquire investments that are within, say, 20 minutes driving distance of a major economic zone. That's where the jobs are. And and the reason is that when you own your own home, you don't mind how far you drive to work. You might be willing to drive an hour to work, no hassle. But when you're a tenant, you get a job first, and then you find a place to live 15 or 20 minutes away. And so really, it's the pool of jobs 15 or 20 minutes away that always drives the rental market. So the further you get away from that pool of jobs, you've got a higher chance of having gaps in your tenancy. So does that more or less answer the question, Julie?
It does, and it makes perfect sense to me. So what you're really saying is that any of the properties that you advise is within that half an hour, if you like, drive time
That's
to
right. Yes,
to a
indeed.
major centre.
But of course, there are the risks and of course, as a fallback, I offer a warranty that if you don't have a tenant for any time after, if you have a gap in your tenancy of more than 5 weeks in the first 3 years, when you're using my strategy, I'll actually undertake to pay you the rent that you've lost any
Wow.
time after that 4 weeks. But the question really is, I hear you saying, wow, the question people should ask when I tell them this, they should say, how often have you paid out, Bernard? And I can say the last 8 years, I've only ever had to pay out that once in 3 years, once in 8 years. And it was a 3 week period, actually happened last Christmas, but just because the house was finished on the 16th of December, you couldn't get a tenant to come in until the first couple of weeks of February. So I had a 3 week exposure, but that's the only time when my strategy about finding always having tenants there, when it didn't work. So yeah, and it cost me 3 weeks, but that's an indication of how my strategy does work very successfully.
That's amazing.